back, guys, and look at that. Our luck has changed. We've managed to locate on Tingana. One of the other vehicles managed to bump into him when we were quite close by, and so we've made our way in, and he is perfectly positioned in the most beautiful, beautiful jackalberry tree. He's got himself nicely draped over those branches. He's gotten out of this nice hot drainage line that we're in, and he's up in the tree where there's a nice breeze blowing, and I'm sure he's very, very comfortable up there. But isn't that spectacular? If there's ever an iconic image of a leopard, it's one in a big tree like this. And I really, really, really like when they're in these big jackalberries, that dark coloration of the bark, and then the coloration of that coat really just contrasts so nicely, and it just becomes a really, really, really beautiful sight. So I'm sure he's quite tired from his morning's walk this morning. When Byron had him, he was fairly mobile all over the place, and last night he was calling at the dam cam all the way at Djuma, so he's moved quite far during the night and during this morning, and so now I'm sure it's just time to rest before the sort of darker hours start to kick in, and it becomes time for him to start hunting. But I'm really, really excited that we kind of bumped into him. I haven't seen him for quite a while. Prior to joining the Wild Earth team, he was a bit elusive. He was kind of spending time in areas that we couldn't get to, and so the last time I saw him was actually in November. So I'm really, really happy that he is back and that we are able to get with him. Unfortunately, he's now just tucked his head right behind the tree. I think he's trying to find a comfortable spot. He's been up and down all over the place with his head, and we've had a few signal issues in the area that we're in. We're right in the bottom of, like I say, of a riverbed, and so it's not easy for where we are to broadcast. Unfortunately, the signal's going up and down, and so we're trying to just find areas that we can actually broadcast from. So hopefully he's going to stick his head back out again, and we'll get a better sighting of him, and he'll show us his face. But for now, all we've got is one of those massive front paws and one of those beautiful little ears sticking out there. Now you'll notice with him, as you can see, his head is kind of bobbing a little bit, so it's, again, like I was saying to you, it's quite warm, and so his rate of breathing is quite fast at the moment. He's not fully panting, but at the moment he's warm, so he's breathing quite heavily just to get rid of and dissipate all that excess heat that is building up inside his body while he's lying up on this tree. But isn't it incredible that we can get so close in terms of the camera that we have these days, that you can see all the individual little spots. You can see that massive, massive paw. And you can see there quite clearly that none of the claws are actually out. We were talking about it a bit yesterday with Karula, but none of the claws on a leopard or a lion actually stay out. They only get protracted when the leopard actually needs it. So when the leopard is attacking an antelope or climbing a tree like he's done now, then those claws are going to flex out and be able to grip onto that tree and then help him to climb up and get up into the tree itself. But that is such a spectacular sight, and it's made the afternoon really something quite special. Like I say, we've been driving around and it's been a little bit quiet, and we've kind of had really good bird sightings, but nothing major on the mammal front. A few really nice sightings of those little baby piglets, but I was really hoping that we'd be able to catch up with either Tingana or the Salalas, and luckily our luck finally turned, and we have this cat now up in this tree, and what a beautiful sighting it is. So we have a question from Raghu, who's a new viewer to Safari Live. Welcome, Raghu. Really, really nice to have you with us and have you on board. I hope you're really enjoying the show so far and you're enjoying the production that we're doing. It really is quite something to be out here with these animals. And you would like to know whether lions or leopards share the same area and live in the same area. Yes, they do. They are constantly moving around one another. Obviously, they don't like to interact as much as possible, but they do move around from one another, and they'll kind of move in the same territories and areas. The leopard has to be quite careful with the lions because obviously lions are very, very much bigger, and they'll often go after leopards. And lions have to be careful, particularly when they have cubs, because big male leopards like this will often go after the cubs. But he's done us a good deed, and he's moved his head now back into a good position that we can actually see, which is really nice of him. But Isn't that the picture of serenity, eh? Just a happy, happy cat. So, James would like to know if I have a particular favorite sighting of Tingana. It's quite a difficult one. I've actually seen quite a lot of him, and I've seen some really crazy stuff from him. But I think my favorite sighting with him was a few years ago. I think it was about 2012. He was a fairly new male to the area, and he was mating at the time with a female called Moya, who's a female that hangs around right in the southern sections of our traverse, and we very seldom see her. But due to the mating, he had dragged her further north, and we were having these really great sighting of her and him mating for a few days. And on one of the mornings, we decided we'd go out looking for them and start tracking them. And we managed to get into a situation where we kind of tracked the whole morning, and it was like 2.5 hours of being on foot, and we had no luck. So we decided to stop for a drink stop and have a little coffee. And while we were having our coffee, we heard this commotion, and so we quickly raced around, and we managed to find both Tingana and Moya, and they were busy hanging off a baby giraffe. So the two of them were basically cooperatively hunting, which is unbelievable because it's not something that's been documented very commonly. And one was hanging off the neck and the other one on the behind, and they managed to bring down this year-old baby giraffe. And they then sat and feasted on it for the day, which was quite something. It's a sighting that I don't think I'll probably ever see again. So, to have one leopard on a giraffe is crazy, but to have two is absolutely unbelievable. So I think that is my favorite sighting of Tingana. Like I say, it's very difficult. He's been a male that I've followed for a long period of time, and I've had some really great sightings of him. But in terms of unusual and just one that I'll always remember, that's definitely it. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to try just move up slightly, just so we can get a better angle on his head and his body. Hopefully the signal will stay. So while we do that, we're going to link back to James on Bushwalk, who apparently has an... So as you guys can see, not much has changed with Tingana. Still sitting very comfortably in his beautiful big jackalberry tree. He's got both legs wrapped around the branch, and if ever a branch looked comfortable, that is what it would look like. That male has positioned himself absolutely perfectly to have a really nice rest. Like I say, he's, I think, just enjoying the cool breeze that's blowing up there. You can see the leaf just to the right of his face there that's busy kind of swaying in the breeze. So a nice breeze that's blowing there. So I'm sure he's a lot cooler up in the tree than what he would be if he was down on the ground. Now, I believe Byron was chatting to you guys about Anderson and where he gets his name from. So the name, as far as I've worked out, has come from an area that he grew up as a youngster. It's a drainage line on Male Game Reserve called the Anderson Drainage, and that's where his name comes from. He used to hang around and spend a lot of time there, and that's where he's picked up that name from. So it's got nothing to do with the Matrix movie. Oh, hello, big boy. We have a little bit of stirring. He's been kind of up and down a little bit. He's, I think, unfortunately, with his head over that branch the way it was just now, it's almost choking himself. So he's been lifting his head quite periodically, and I think he's just shifting and trying to get himself a little bit more balanced on that tree. But it is going to be quite interesting to see what he does next, because there is a big storm that seems to be approaching from our northwest. We've got lots of lightning and thunder and coming in from the northwest, and he's just popped his head up to look in that direction. So you can just see those grey clouds coming off to the side there, and that big storm is just starting to roll in. So I'm pretty sure when the big cracks of lightning start to happen, that he's going to be pretty aware of that situation, and you might find then he'll come down. Obviously these cats are very aware of what the dangers of that lightning have, and so they come down off the trees and into the ground and go and hide out, particularly if we have rain. So he kind of pops his head up every now and then when there's a little bit of a rumble in the distance. Now it's quite interesting because generally the rain doesn't actually come from that side of the reserve. It normally comes from the south, but today it's coming from the north. So James from Missouri would like to know what kind of diseases affect male leopards in the Sabi Sands. There is a few diseases that could potentially affect these guys. Probably the most prominent one would be rabies. So how they get it is often we have, because we're on the fringes of communities here, we have a few situations where dogs get into the reserve that carry rabies, and then the leopards target those dogs and unfortunately kill them, and you end up with a situation that they contract the rabies from those dogs. So rabies can be a problem from time to time. Then there are nutrient deficient diseases like white muscle disease that can present itself if he doesn't get the right nutrients, which does happen in drought times. But generally, it's only really those two that really are quite bad for leopards in this area. They don't really suffer from too much else. But look how spectacular that is. What a beautiful tree it is as well. You know, often these big jackalberries, they tend to be so densely foliated that when a leopard sits in it like this, you don't really see too much. But he's chosen the perfect branch with these beautiful sort of limbs that are going out horizontally, which is the perfect kind of angle for him to lie at. So absolutely beautiful sighting. So you can see that the vehicles are not disturbing him in any way whatsoever. He's still fast asleep. So Laura would like to know if Anderson goes by another name. As far as I know, he doesn't. His only name that I've ever known and have ever been aware of is Anderson. But there was a time where some of the trackers in this area used to refer to him as Spoko, which does mean ghost, but it was kind of never really institutionalized, and no one ever really formally called him that. It was kind of just a nickname that some of the trackers that used to try and follow his tracks, because he's notoriously difficult to follow. He tends to move really long distances, and so a really, really tough animal to actually track. And so they gave him that nickname, and some of the guides have cottoned onto it and kind of kept up with that name. But yeah, his name is Anderson, and really very few people refer to him as Ghost or Spork, as the name is said. Alright, so while we just sit here and just see what Tingana is going to get up to and see if maybe the storm is going to disturb him to come down and have a little walk around, we're going to go back towards James so he can say his goodbyes before the storm gets him out on the walk, and then we'll see you guys a little bit later. So welcome back, guys. We've just repositioned ourselves slightly just so we can get that lightning in the background. So I'm really hoping that you'll be able to see this epic scene that we have with this male leopard draped over the branches of this jackalberry, big storm in the background, lightning bolts coming down, thunder rolling in from the side. It is really quite a surreal moment and a surreal scene to be a part of. And I really hope that you guys are getting some of this. I hope a lot of the viewers are taking lots of screenshots because it is a very, very, very beautiful picture. And out of nowhere, he's just decided to let us all know that he is indeed awake and that it is almost time for him to start getting mobile. So he's just made that grunting, growling kind of sound in order to vocalize to any other leopards that could potentially be in this area that he is the dominant male here and that he is in his territory and that he's trying to ward them off and make a big audio display so that all the other leopards that could potentially be around here know that their big male is back and the dominant male is back, because a male that isn't dominant will definitely not call like that, because he doesn't want to bring attention to himself and have to deal with a larger, bigger male than possibly what he is. So that is a sign of a really dominant male, and so he's vocalized now just to tell everybody, I'm going to be the dominant male, I am the dominant male in this area, so if you want to challenge me, you're going to have to be very, very careful. But a little bit out of nowhere, he's kind of been quite sleepy, and generally they kind of will be down on the ground and they like to kind of call into the ground. It just helps to resonate the sound out a little bit. It's not often that you actually see them calling from the trees like that, and especially a cat that was completely flat that just decided all of a sudden just to belt out for his best chorus. So not something I would have expected, but definitely a nice surprise. but it looks like he's getting quite restless. So there's been some yawning, and there we go, there's some more yawning happening now. So I think he's thinking about starting to come down, and hopefully he does while we're here, and we can follow him a little bit and see what he gets up to. But isn't that just spectacular? Look at the size of his head and his muzzle and his neck areas. Absolutely massive. That is one of those incredible, incredible shots. Look at that. Now, he is incredibly beautiful, but he often looks very dopey to me. He's got this kind of, these eyebrows that hang over his head a little bit, so he often looks a little bit dopey, but he is absolutely majestic, eh? What a beautiful, beautiful cat. Wow, that is a special, special sighting, eh? Like I say, for me, nothing gets better in this world than having a spotted cat like this up in a tree. And I'm particularly fond of the big males. I really like the big males. They just seem to exude a power and sort of majesty about them that really kind of makes them have this presence when you're near them. So, you know, to see him up like that now that he's popped his head up with that sky in the background is just absolutely unbelievable. What a special, special, special moment that is. Like I say, I'm hoping that we'll get some lightning strikes in the background, and if any of the viewers are able to catch any screenshots with lightning in the background, it'll be a very big challenge. So we'll see if anybody can actually do it. But we did have one. Dave's just informed me that a lightning bolt has just crashed down behind him. So if anybody got that, please let us know and send it to us. We'd love to see some of your screenshots that you guys have managed to take. But I tell you what, for a Wednesday afternoon, it doesn't get much better than that. So, as you can see, he's kind of just watching in the distance now. Like I say, I think he's busy approaching a storm. He's watching the storm kind of coming in. And there's also a little golden-tailed woodpecker that is on a branch just below him there. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a little crooked branch on the bottom left. Just a little bit more to your left there. And there we go. On the bottom there, and there it is. That's busy pecking away, so he's become quite interested in this little woodpecker. And isn't that incredible? From big to small, eh? We've got this tiny little woodpecker bouncing around in the same tree as a massive male leopard, and it doesn't get much better than that. For somebody that is interested in birds and leopards, that is absolutely awesome. And look at that, it's gone actually into a hole. I wonder if it doesn't have its nest there. That would be quite something to follow up on and just have a look at. This is absolutely incredible. There's looks like a little nest that they've created inside there, and given that the storm is arriving and it's starting to get dark, I'm pretty sure that that little woodpecker has gone in and made itself a nest inside there, and that's where it's going to roost for the night. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that nest. I'm going to come past here in the next few days and see. Maybe we get lucky and we find the adults there, and maybe in a few days or few weeks time we get lucky enough to get some chicks even, and the feeding of the chicks. So we'll definitely come back here and scratch around for that. But like I say, unfortunately, Tingana is stealing the show a little bit at the moment, and given that the woodpecker's gone inside its hole, I'm sure it's not going to come out anytime soon. So we'll go back to him and just watch him kind of gazing over the landscape and watching what's going on. And you can see there's going to get a nice big yawn. So that yawn is just helping to get a bit of oxygen into the lungs, get that blood pumping around the body, getting all the lactic acid that's built up. And there we go. You see now he's going to stand up, and he's hopefully going to start getting going. But there we go, a bit of lightning in the background. Isn't that absolutely incredible, guys? That is absolutely beautiful. He's busy just kind of looking around, plotting his next move at this stage. So I'm pretty sure he's just going to come down the tree. Hopefully he'll come down the tree towards us, and we'll get him kind of lying up on this termite mound for a bit. But up there, he's probably got a really nice vantage point, and given that he's been lying facing the other way, I'm sure that he's just kind of having a little look around, checking that maybe there's no sign of impalas or any other animal that could potentially be around. But isn't that incredible, guys? That is absolutely beautiful. So I don't know if you guys can see how close he actually is to us. He's right here. It's pretty incredible. And he's having a little sniff around. I wonder if maybe another leopard hasn't been up this tree at some point recently. This is the area that Shadow likes to hang around in. And so it's very, very possible that Shadow has been up this tree at some point and has maybe left a chemical scent behind, and she's now picking it up. And maybe we'll see him open his mouth and analyze that scent further. What they do is when they open that mouth, they've got two little pits in the roof of the mouth called the organ of Jacobson, and those pits just help analyze that chemical, and it'll tell him if it's male, female, if it is a male or a female. Isn't that incredible, guys? It is one of those sounds that is just absolutely unbelievable. And like I say, I just can't express how amazing this is. It's one of my sort of dream sightings, is to have a male leopard like this calling in a tree, lightning in the background. Absolutely beautiful. So we're going to try and follow Tingana and see where he goes. Like I say, unfortunately, the area that we're in, the signal's not great, so we might lose signal, but let's see how we go. Hopefully we're not going to lose any signal, and we'll be able to follow him a little bit. But while we kind of follow him around and see how the signal goes, we're going to go back to Byron and see what he's up to on his little bumble. So welcome back, guys. So Tingana is indeed on the move. He's busy kind of moving in a westerly direction at the moment. He's just slowly ambling along. I don't think he's in too much of a hurry at this stage, but he is kind of just slowly moving along. He keeps stopping and watching what's going on, and just trying to listen out if there's generally anything around. You can hear some Franklin's alarm calling in the background there. So they've obviously seen him coming down the road, and you can see he's completely unperturbed. So he's not in stealth mode at this stage. I wonder if he's maybe not going to go and find himself a little bit of water. It's like we've been saying, it's been a very warm day, and you know, he's probably had a long day of kind of trying to stay cool, and so would have lost quite a bit of moisture. And that way he'll be looking for quite a bit more water, just to kind of top up and make sure that he doesn't dehydrate too much. But I believe Byron was telling about khaki fever, and of all the guides here, I'm sure Byron would be probably the most qualified. Maybe Brent as well, who knows. Brent in his heyday was probably one of those that attracted a little bit of khaki fever. And in the short time that I've been in the camp, I've actually noticed a bit of khaki fever between a relationship. A number of people in the camp commented about it, and so be interesting to know what Byron's thoughts are. Actually, he was very timid when we approached the subject yesterday, but let's see, maybe he'll give us a response a little bit later. But as you can see, he's kind of just mobile. Let's get back to things that are for real. Looking around, and you can see he's kind of down this little riverbed now. There's a road that's going to intersect us, and I'm pretty sure it's going to go straight